Well, controversy continues to brew over George Will's comment. In an op-ed column, the Washington Post columnist takes issue with the Obama administration's recent report on the college campus rape crisis. Will says the numbers are inflated. The White House reports that 1 in 5 women on college campuses have been sexually assaulted. Will called that estimate, quote, preposterous. He also characterizes universities as making victimhood a, quote, coveted status, end quote. Comments have outraged women's groups, many of whom are calling for his dismissal from the Washington Post. In fact, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch decided to drop the columnist from their pages in protest. Well, joining us now in Washington is Laura Dunn. Laura is not only a survivor of campus rape, but also the founder of Survjustice, a nonprofit that assists other survivors of campus sexual assault. And she also has become a victims' rights lawyer. Also joining us from Southfield, Michigan is Dean Esmay, a men's rights activist and the managing editor of A Voice for Men. I want to welcome both of you to Arise America. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Dean. I want to start with you because I just want to sort of lay a foundation of how you feel about this statistic. The White House says, and I went back and I read the report from which Vice President Joe Biden quoted the 1 in 5 women are sexually assaulted on a college campus. What I found, though, is that's actually taken from a CDC report that asked women on college campuses if they had been a victim of sexual assault in their lifetime. So it makes the number look a little bit different. With that in mind, though, Dean, tell me if you believe there is some sort of hysteria or over-reporting of sexual assault, particularly to women on college campuses.
I believe there's a terrible over-reporting. Well, I believe the 1 in 5 statistic is fatuous nonsense. The only thing that George Will got wrong was he blamed progressives for it, when actually he just should have been more specifically calling out ideological feminists who have a vested financial interest in putting women into a state of fear. The 1 in 5 number is bogus. And in fact, if you use the methodologies they use to reach that 1 in 5 number, about 1 in 6 men are sexually assaulted by women on college campuses. It is a fatuous number. Nobody who understands the science. Speaking as a sexual abuse survivor myself, I very much resent the way they are inflating these statistics to demonize men and erase male victims of female perpetrators.
I know, Laura, you'd like to respond to that, so go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the 1 in 5 statistic has been borne out in more than one study done by more than one department, whether it's federal, private researchers. It is grounded actually in fact. And what we found is that when we ask people if they've had any experience where someone forces them to engage in sexual contact against their will, that number bears out. And it's over the course of 4 years of college. So there isn't an overinflation at all. It's a very accurate measure. It's proven since 2001 until now, 2014, to accurately capture the situation. And I think you have to really believe that women are liars in order to think that that statistic is not true.
So, Dean, I see you shaking your head. I want to ask you this question as you respond to what Laura is saying is, upon what do you base your association that these numbers are overinflated?
All you have to do is look at things like the CDC report and the National Intimate Partner Sexual Violence Survey and these very same studies, and you will find that their methodologies are using ridiculous, ludicrous standards like, did a man give you alcohol before you had sex with him? Oh, well, that makes you a rape survivor. Once again, I've talked to many professional researchers who've looked at this. This ultimately comes from a discredited feminist researcher in the 1980s named Mary Koss at the University of Arizona. Again, if you just look at the data, then women are sexually assaulting boys on college campuses at virtually the same rate as this bogus 1 in 5 statistic. If you believe this bogus 1 in 5 statistic, you believe that on a college campus of 5,000 students, about 1,000, maybe 2,000 women will be raped during the time there. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
They're using a nonsensical definition of rape.
Go ahead, Laura.
They really are using it.
Here doesn't show thousands of people being assaulted on campuses. I come from the University of Wisconsin, one of the biggest campuses in the entire country, and the statistic would show that about 700 assaults happen a year. But we have already 40,000 students. That is actually accurate, and what we unfortunately have is underreporting. It's not that sexual assault doesn't happen on campus. It's that it historically hasn't been talked about, and it's no surprise why when you hear this other guest, I mean, calling people liars, saying they're making it up. I'm a victim of campus sexual assault. I'm part of that that statistic. I have several friends and people that I know that make up that number. I mean, their research has borne out, and it's nationally relied upon. There's funding based off this.
And let me just ask you.
There is funding based on it.
Let me ask you this, Dean, if I can just jump in. I guess my question is, what would be gained by inflating this number? What it implies is absolutely horrific. And as a woman that has had a number of female friends throughout my own experience going through college and through graduate school, I can name on all my fingers and my toes women who were sexually assaulted. So it's easy for me, in my experience as a woman and the conversations that I've had with other women, to believe that this statistic is not far off. So what would be gained by overinflating it?
Well, first off, speaking as a victim myself of sexual assault by a woman, I would guess that you've never even bothered to ask a male companion if this has ever happened to him. Those same statistics bear out that women do this sort of thing to men just about as often. And that is what they do. And in any case, there's millions of dollars to be made in government money in inflating this, government and charitable dollars.
Well, Dean, let me just ask you this. Since you've mentioned it twice, you said that you're a survivor of sexual assault, and I'm so sorry to hear about that, because I wish no human being would ever have to go through that. But it is a fact that there are children that have lied about being sexually assaulted for whatever their motives. Does that diminish the trauma that you experienced?
Certainly not, although I think children and adults are different things. The fact is that if we use the same standards being used here, women are sexually assaulting men at very nearly the same rate as men are sexually assaulting women. This, to me, says something is wrong with the way we're reporting it. We are demonizing men, and we are putting women in a perpetual state of fear. And the motivation for it is money. Charitable money based on gender hysteric statistics.
How can we keep saying that the rates of victimization for men and women are equal? No research has ever determined that. In fact, although men are very much victims, we actually have perpetrators that are almost always male. Over 90% of perpetrators are male. This is actually a problem related to toxic masculinity in our society. But both men and women suffer from sexual violence. No one has ever denied that. In fact, the Violence Against Women Act just expanded to acknowledge more survivors, not just males, but also members of the LGBT community. We recognize all survivors. This isn't about gender, but unfortunately, males are dominantly the perpetrators of this crime. And in fact, men are just generally more likely to commit crime than women, and that's shown in criminological research. It's a fact. It's not a question.
No, I'm afraid that what your guest here has said is a bigoted, hate-mongering lie. In fact, most of the statistics erase female predators, which is one of the most damaging human rights issues of our day.
That's actually not true, Dean. I'm sitting here looking at results from the CDC, and I don't have time to go through all these statistics, but the CDC is the one that came up with this 1 in 5 women in the course of their lifetime have been raped. It also says 1 in 71 men have been sexually assaulted in the course of their lives, and it also does say, if I can find the number, that 98% of the victims are female, 93% of the perpetrators are male, and that's according to the CDC.
The CDC is intentionally understating the female perpetration rate and the male victimization rate, and I can show you that in the CDC report.
I'm going to have to stop it right there, unfortunately. This is such an important conversation that needs to be had. I want to thank both of you, Laura Dunn as well as Dean Esmay. So sorry I've got to cut it off here, but thank you so much.